So, we keep telling you to lift heavy. But what does that mean, and how do you know if you're lifting heavy enough? How do you gauge the right intensity during your lifts to make sure you're getting the best bang for your buck? If you've been lifting and you've been feeling like you're getting stronger, but you're not quite sure where to go from there, this video is for you. Hi, I'm Kayla Marie, certified personal trainer and nutrition specialist. I've been helping people learn how to lift weights and move better since 2014. My aim is to help you feel more confident in the weight room, teach you the methods behind the madness, and help equip you to stop spinning your wheels and finally reach your fitness goals. Hi friends, welcome to part 2 of my Weightlifting 101 series. If you didn't see my last video, I do recommend going and watching that one first, where I discuss why we weightlift in the first place, and I go over 2 of the most important components to building muscle. In this video, I want to discuss 3 main things: intensity, soreness, and progression. So first, let's talk about proper intensity when you're lifting weights and how to know if you're pushing hard enough and lifting heavy enough. So we use what we call RPE, or rate of perceived exertion. This is a scale from 1 to 10, where 10 is the most challenging. 10 would ultimately mean that you have pushed yourself almost to failure or to failure, and that last rep you did was probably the last rep you could have done. So when we are used to doing cardio, Pilates, HIIT classes, we have to relearn the sensations we associate with exercise when we start lifting. You may do a set of barbell squats, for example, and end up with an RPE of 9 or 10 while only doing 3 or 4 reps and barely feel a burning sensation like you would be used to when doing a lot of reps with lower weight. So generally speaking, we want to be working at an RPE of about a 7 to 9 out of 10. If you're doing warm-up sets, which I recommend you do, you may do 2 to 3 sets where the RPE is only a 5 or a 6, but then we move into our working sets, which should be at about an 8 or a 9. So if you're following a program and it calls for 3 sets of 8 back squats, this is typically referring to your working sets. So if you're starting with the barbell to warm up, that is not one of your 3 sets. Use those warm-up sets to work out any other kinks, feel where you might need additional warming up, and start to gauge that intensity from the beginning of your set. Does that barbell feel heavy today? Or does it feel pretty light? Are you feeling pretty good? Then when you add the weight on and you're getting to that intensity of, oh my gosh, this set was an 8 or a 9 out of 10, now you're in your working set. So another way to gauge this intensity is the inverse of RPE, what we call RIR, or reps in reserve. If you're rating your set of 6 reps at an RPE of 9 or 10, this means that you would have maybe an RIR of 1. If your RPE is a 7, you might have about 3 reps left until you fail that set. When you're looking at hypertrophy, which is muscle growth, studies have shown that it actually doesn't matter if you want to lift heavier or lighter weights. What matters is if you're pushing that intensity toward a failing range. Of course, if you look at relative strength by itself, the person training with higher weights will most likely be stronger than the person training at lower weights. But in terms of muscle building and looking like you have muscle, technically you will see lots of progress from a variety of rep ranges as long as you're pushing the intensity. So this is why trainers don't do a very good job of keeping track of if you do 9 reps or 15. What matters is if that 9 reps was at the right RPE. Your body doesn't know what weight you're using, it knows the stimulus and the demand you're putting on it. I do want to remind you that every day is not going to feel the same. Every week is not going to feel the same. There are days when that barbell is going to feel very heavy, and other days it's going to feel like butter. This is normal. It's to be expected. We don't gain strength linearly. That would be obnoxious. But during the first few years of training, you will most likely see a massive improvement in strength and gains, and you'll be able to jump those weights pretty quickly. But then you're going to hit a sort of plateau as you mature in your training age. You're gonna get stuck. But remember that it doesn't matter if it's 20 pounds or 40 pounds. What matters is how you're lifting it, and the circumstances surrounding that lift. How's your sleep, your nutrition, your recovery, your stress levels all make a big difference every week. So speaking of, It is fairly common for people to want to chase soreness. That ultimately means you did something, right? Soreness is simply a side effect of doing something you haven't adapted to yet, something new, something you haven't done in a while, or something you haven't been doing consistently. Soreness can also be an indicator of how well you're recovering or not recovering. If you want to be sore, just be dehydrated and sleep deprived and sit for 2 straight days at your desk. You'll be much more sore compared to being well rested, well hydrated, nourished, and if you've been finding ways to stay active and move your body in between those lifting sessions. Soreness after workout is also referred to as DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness. If you've ever noticed how the second day is often way worse than the first, hence the delayed onset part of things. So it's believed that DOMS is caused by micro tears in the muscle fibers after they've been stressed in new ways, which will ultimately lead to your body's adaptation response to build stronger muscles. But these studies have been quite inconclusive. We know soreness is not caused by lactic acid, and most of us agree it's somewhat of an inflammatory response, but even that claim has been disputed. The truth is we aren't completely sure why weightlifting or strenuous exercise makes us so sore, but we do know it is not a reliable sign of muscle stimulation or growth, and it does seem to have multiple factors that influence it. Regardless, even if we enjoy the feeling of being sore, optimizing recovery is even more important. You want to be able to move more. If you're only working out once every 10 days because you're so sore every time, you might want to relook at that. Being hydrated, nourishing yourself with plenty of protein, carbohydrates, getting enough sleep, and of course working out at an appropriate intensity will help reduce that soreness. And some people are just really prone to being sore, like me, and others are like never sore no matter what. Again, this does not indicate quality. But I like to use it as a reminder that either I have pushed myself to a new limit or I need to focus on bettering my recovery. So now that you are lifting at the right intensity, you're recovering well and you're not as sore as often, how do we know when to progress? So progressions can occur within a single workout or at certain intervals over the course of a training program. A quick way to add a progression, for example, would be to increase that weight. Let's just get that one out of the way, obviously. If you do a set and you don't feel that it's hard enough, you know that you can do more weight with proper form, go for it. A lot of the times I will encourage my clients to go up in weight if they feel comfortable, even if it means dropping their reps down. If you're able to do 10 reps with 30 pounds, maybe the RPE is only about a 6, and you want to go to 40 pounds, but then you're only able to get 6 or 7 reps. But now your RPE is at an 8 or a 9, that's what we want. But say you aren't ready to add more weight, you don't want to that day, maybe it isn't an available option. Well, let's talk about a few other options to progress your workout. The first I want to talk about is increasing your time under tension. This would mean going slower. This would mean performing maybe eccentric focused reps or adding a pause. You have 3 phases of an exercise: the concentric, isometric, and the eccentric. So essentially you have a lift phase, a hold phase, and a lowering phase. If you resist gravity pulling that dumbbell back towards the ground, or you resist the cable machine pulling you back in, you are going to recruit a ton more muscle fibers, which means more muscle growth, more gains. This is a great way to help break through strength plateaus and strengthen weak points in your movement. If you really want to do something like a pull-up, eccentric reps may be your way to get there. Instead of focusing on the pulling up part, if you start up and focus on the controlling down part, I bet you will make a lot more gains than you think. When you pause your reps at the bottom of a squat, for example, you are increasing your time under tension, but you're also reducing your power by about 30%, which means you have to work harder to get up out of that squat. The bottom of your squat is also the place you want to minimize the time because it's hard to be there. So if you force yourself to stick in that bottom position longer, you will increase your strength. So when you adjust the speed of your exercise, we call it tempo. So if you're doing a 1-0-1 tempo, that is your standard typical curl up, curl down movement. If you were to do a 3-3-3 tempo, it would take you 3, 2, 1, to get up, 3, 2, 1 at the hold, and 3, 2, 1 of the lower. This is a great way if you're only training with body weight or you don't have access to heavier weights to make every exercise much, much harder. Another way to increase your progress without going heavier is to increase your range of motion. This is why everybody hates Bulgarian split squats. By elevating that back foot rather than just keeping it on the floor, you are able to bend that back knee all the way down, get further range, and it's going to stretch those muscle fibers and demand more control in that range, which is going to lead to progress. A deficit lunge with your front foot elevated does the same thing. You can also increase your step up from 12 inches to 18 inches, or increase your squat depth, especially if you're not hitting parallel or you want to be able to go past parallel, especially without a butt wink. This would be a way to add progress, is to work just on your depth and your end ranges. The better mobility your joints have, the better movement your muscles can have. You can also add more volume to your training load. This can look like adding an additional set, performing more reps, or adding in more exercises or more days that you're exercising. You can also get a little fancy and do something like a superset to further fatigue that muscle. So a superset involves 2 exercises back to back that involve the same muscle groups. I love using this for shoulders, arms, abs, other accessory muscle groups. Drop sets are another option where you will be able to extend your set by dropping the weight down every time you fatigue. So I love using this with biceps or leg extensions or those isolated exercises where you might perform as many reps as you can with the heaviest weight. As soon as you're failing and you can't do one more rep, you drop the weight down 5 or 10 pounds, you do more reps. So it's extending your set, which is ultimately extending the time under tension. Remember that your muscles don't know if you're lifting 10 pounds or 20 pounds. It knows when it's close to failing. I hope this video helps. I hope you go into the gym this week and ask yourself what RPE you've been working at, where you can improve and add in progressions, and go crush your goals. As always, please like and subscribe to support me and follow along to learn more. See y'all next time.